All right, so this portion of our training is the live demo of the monitoring instrument in Grants for Me. So you should now be able to see my screen. I am logged into our test site here on Grants for Me, where we're allowed to kind of be in the sandbox without affecting the live site. I do want to note one other thing. The SAUs I've chosen as our examples today, it just happened to be at the beginning of the alphabet, has nothing to do with what their actual monitoring status was. So you're likely familiar with this page. When you log into Grants for Me, you have to select your organization. And then from there, in our left-hand navigation, you'll notice there's a monitoring section, and it says monitoring instruments. Right now, the only monitoring instrument in there is for ESEA. So we're going to click on that link here in FY26 to get ourselves started. You'll notice this should again look a little familiar to how your application works in Grants for Me. You have a status change at the top. You have a history log and a comment feature where we can communicate with each other. And then you have some other pages. So just like with your application, you're not going to be able to enter any data until you click Draft Started. So now that our sample SAU has started the draft of their monitoring instrument, I would also point out that there is an ESEA monitoring status page. So if for some reason you can't find your letter and you can't find it on the GAN, we've given you a third place to find it right here, your subrecipient monitoring status. Now back on the sections page, what I'd like to show you is how you're going to upload your evidence for monitoring. So we're going to start with item B1 as an example. So you'll notice here for item B1, there is a yes or no question. Does the SAU consult with principals, teachers, parents, and students in the design and development of its ESEA funding application? This should be a yes. Um, From there, you then have a couple upload spots to upload evidence. So we talked in the training about item B1 that you might have a list or minutes from a meeting that you had with all of these stakeholders. You might have a survey you do. You're going to click the upload new link. I'm going to confirm that saving some data on this page. And then, you know how this works. You're going to pick a file. We like to have folks upload PDFs. That way the file can't be edited. That is our request of all of you. And then you can give it a new name if you need to, like parent meeting minutes, for example. So now you'll see this file has been uploaded and it'll be there for Maine DOE to review. For each question, we also have this box here that's just kind of an open narrative where if there's any more information you want to explain about an item, or if you feel like the evidence you've submitted doesn't fully answer the question or provide enough detail, you can use that narrative. As always, Grants for Me has the 1 hour timer on it, so be mindful of that. Especially, I know many of you are very busy folks. You're going between different responsibilities. You always want to click that save and go to current page. You can go back to sections, you can go to the next page, but save early and save often. It does not save automatically for you. So the last thing I want to show here on our first sample district is what it looks like for our high folks. So what you'll notice is there are medium items that are required of everyone. And again, it might be a yes, a no, or an NA. But then we also have some high items. So I want to look at item A2. What you'll notice here, because this SAU is in this example selected for high level monitoring, this little box has been checked for them, and they have that same setup for evidence submission as the previous item. If they were not a high district, if you're a district identified for a medium level of monitoring support, this box is not checked. This little box is not activated. The page will look blank to you. You do not need to complete it. That's how you know this item does not apply to you. Just like with your ESC application, there are validation messages. So, for example, I haven't answered some of these questions here, and it's going to tell me that if I try to submit the monitoring instrument. But you would submit it simply by clicking draft completed. Like I said, I'm going to have errors because I'm not going to be submitting 20 plus items here with you right now, but that is how that would work. So from there, once you click draft completed, it does come to Maine DOE for our review. Once we do our review, it comes back to you. So I've got a new district here that I've already kind of set up. for their monitoring, and it's been given the status of Maine DOE or MDOE ESEA Consolidated Regional Program Manager reviewed. You've submitted all of your evidence on these medium and potentially high-level monitoring pages. Your results are going to be at the very bottom. Your initial submission is the only time you're using the individual item pages. From here on forward, once you've done that initial submission, everything is going to come down here under Monitoring Results, LEA Response. When you arrive at this page, you'll note you have some colors on little dots. Those indicate the scores you receive for your items, and then as you scroll down, you'll see the narrative feedback for those items. So for this example, for item A1, what the SAU submitted met requirements, and they got their 3 green dots. What they submitted for item B1 did not meet requirements, and that's why there is 1 red dot. So what you'll notice when that happens is we give you the name of the item, we give you a point of contact here at Maine DOE who reviewed that item in case you have some specific questions. We summarize the item in case you don't want to go back and look at that part of the monitoring instrument. And then we give you your narrative feedback here in the actions required section. So we state explicitly what needs to be done to solve this monitoring finding. Again, there's a place to upload a document, and then right here is where Maine DOE will approve it. You'll notice right now, I can't upload anything. Well, that's because I didn't change the status when I started with you folks. So I'm going to go back here and change the status to LEA results review started. Now, what you should notice as we scroll back down is I have my little pencil icon, which allows me to upload documents, and then it's going to look just as it did on the initial upload. I choose my document. I can name it. And I can save it. Once you've done that, there's no more need for a status change. We can check that you've submitted these documents and we will review them. You'll also notice we give each item a deadline, and the system does automatically flag if your evidence was submitted on time or not. So this SAU also had an item that is yellow. That means they met requirements with recommendations. So we have given a recommendation here at Maine DOE for how they should change their practice. And all they need to do is check this box confirming they have received this recommendation and they will implement them in the future. So that is sort of a short and sweet version of how the monitoring instrument works in grants for me. If for some reason documentation is uploaded that needs to be revised, we will change the status back to reviewed, and you'll get that notification in your inbox. And any of those items that were NA just showed up as a gray circle, so they didn't have one of the lovely colors.
So Ryan, am I right when I look at how the instrument works? The first submissions are all on their own individual pages. And then after that, once the feedback has been provided and there's the colorful dots, we're working off of a page that ends up being on the bottom of the sections page and looks different depending on whose status, who has the ownership to edit those pages. I ask that just because I think that's a one confusing aspect to the instrument that as long as folks are clear that, you know, the initial submission's on its own page because you have ability to upload documents for it, you have the ability to provide the narrative. But after that, the feedback and whether things are acceptable or not will really be all summarized on one page.
Yes, that is correct. So your initial submission, all of that work that's due, I believe by January 9th, is on these pages here, like we showed you in the first half, and then onto the high pages if you're a high district. But then moving forward, any sort of corrective actions, all of your results, they're on this monitoring results LEA response page. We sort of summarize all of those items in one place for you. So you're not having to jump between pages to find your results. Everything is here. This is your report card, if you will, for how your semester of ESEA monitoring went.
Yeah, just mentioning, since we're on recording, it could be helpful that yes, the colors won't change after. It's that initial submission. So whether it was acceptable right away, whether you need to confirm, or whether you need to submit. And Ryan did show kind of how that page starts to look. It gets a little clunky, but you'll see under each particular item that you need to respond to, there's the ability for us to say documentation accepted. And once you have those yeses, there won't be any more action steps, and your SAU will have completed that item and met the requirements.
So what Rita's referencing is right here. So if this SAU uploaded their meeting minutes, and we went in later as Maine DOE and approved them, we would then check this box that would say documentation approved, and it would say yes. If it said no, we would then add a new action step for you to complete. So you wouldn't be worrying about action number 1 anymore. It would be step 2 with some additional feedback on what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. And this provides a running record, right? So let's say it takes a couple submissions or you weren't sure what you had to submit. You'll see no, not accept, not approved. Here's what you still need to do. And it does leave a record for how many attempts it takes and what is still left required, because we end up specifying the documentation. So if something was submitted, but it's not quite right, in our next step to you, we will be more specific about what's needed or what is still left unmet in terms of a requirement, and you can upload that additional documentation there.
And worth noting too that something can go from some actions required with additional documentation to then being a confirmation item. So for example, if these folks uploaded their meeting minutes, but maybe they didn't denote the year of the meeting minute, that might become a meets with recommendations as their kind of second action step. Please ensure that all notes are properly dated in the future.